They've lied to you for years. You've been told that the number one reason your libido fades after 50 is menopause itself. Hormones, hot flashes, aging. It's what the magazines, the so-called experts, and even some doctors have repeated until it feels like gospel. But the truth is far more unsettling, and it's not what you think. Because the number one libido killer for women over 50 is not menopause. It's not aging. It's not even declining estrogen. It's something you encounter every single day without realizing it's quietly shutting down your body's ability to respond to intimacy. And unless you remove it, no supplement, no hormone replacement, no expensive therapy will fully restore the spark you're craving. I'll tell you exactly what it is in a moment. But first, let's understand how desire actually works in the female body, because most people don't even know the mechanics. Libido begins in the brain, not the bedroom. Desire is orchestrated by the hypothalamus, that tiny but powerful gland in your brain that acts like your hormonal switchboard. When you feel safe, when your body has enough energy, when stress signals are low, your hypothalamus releases gonadotropin-releasing hormone. That sparks the pituitary gland to release FSH and LH, two hormones that stimulate the ovaries. Even after menopause, when ovaries no longer release eggs, this pathway still influences how your body produces testosterone and estrogen in smaller amounts, both of which fuel sexual desire. Here's where the problem begins. Women over 50 are often under silent attack from a hidden disruptor. It blocks those brain-to-body signals, scrambles the delicate chemistry of estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, and shuts down vaginal blood flow, making arousal physically difficult. That disruptor is chronic inflammation, driven largely by the foods you eat every single day. Yes, food, not menopause, not aging, but diet-induced inflammation. It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? You'd think food only affects your weight, maybe your cholesterol. But modern science shows that processed foods, especially refined sugars, hydrogenated oils, and ultra-processed carbs, directly interfere with your sexual physiology. Studies published in journals like the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism reveal that chronic inflammation lowers nitric oxide production in your blood vessels. Nitric oxide is the molecule that allows arteries to dilate, increasing blood flow. Without it, your genitals cannot receive enough circulation to create natural lubrication or sensitivity. That alone makes intimacy feel uncomfortable or even impossible, and it gets worse. Inflammation doesn't just restrict blood flow, it also raises cortisol, the stress hormone. High cortisol is one of the fastest libido killers there is. When cortisol is high, the hypothalamus literally shuts down reproductive signaling. Let me give you an example. Imagine a woman who eats a normal Western breakfast, cereal with skim milk, maybe a slice of toast, maybe orange juice. On the surface, it looks healthy. But here's the biology. The cereal and toast spike glucose rapidly. The juice adds another hit of fructose. Blood sugar surges, insulin is released, and inflammation rises. Within hours, nitric oxide availability drops, cortisol increases, and hormonal balance shifts toward suppression. Do this day after day, year after year, and the brain's reproductive switchboard becomes less responsive. Desire isn't gone because she's 55. It's gone because her body is flooded with silent biochemical saboteurs. Now, I promised you the number one libido killer. Here it is in plain terms. The combination of refined sugar and processed vegetable oils. That's the deadly duo. Sugar we understand. It spikes insulin, drives inflammation, and destroys nitric oxide. But processed vegetable oils, things like soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, sunflower oil, are even more insidious. They're loaded with omega-6 fatty acids in unnaturally high concentrations. Omega-6 itself isn't evil, but when it outweighs omega-3s, it turns on pro-inflammatory pathways in your body. And here's the kicker. These oils are in almost everything. Store-bought salad dressings, crackers, bread, low-fat snacks, even so-called health bars. When your body is constantly inflamed from sugar and bad oils, testosterone levels drop. And yes, women need testosterone. It's not just a male hormone. In fact, testosterone is one of the biggest drivers of libido in women. It fuels motivation, energy, and sexual interest. But chronic inflammation increases something called sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG. This little protein binds up free testosterone, making it unavailable for your cells to use. You could have normal levels on a blood test, but if most of it is bound up by SHBG, you'll feel flat, unmotivated, and uninterested in intimacy. This is why so many women are misdiagnosed. They're told, "Oh, it's just menopause." They're offered hormone creams or antidepressants, but if they continue to eat the foods that raise inflammation and SHBG, those treatments can only go so far. The root cause remains untouched. And here's where the suspense builds, because most women assume the answer is to add more hormones. But what if I told you that's not the first step? The first step is removing the libido killers. Because until you do, your body will always be fighting against itself. In a few minutes, I'll share the exact foods that restore circulation, lower inflammation, and reignite natural desire. But before we get there, let's look deeper into how inflammation changes your brain chemistry. Your brain's reward system, particularly dopamine pathways, are tightly connected to libido. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of motivation and pleasure. Inflammation dulls dopamine signaling by interfering with receptor sensitivity. This means not only do you feel less interested in sex, but even when you experience pleasure, it feels muted. That's why some women say, "I just don't feel anything anymore." It's not in their head, it's in their neurochemistry. And dopamine has another role. It stimulates the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Oxytocin is what makes intimacy feel emotionally satisfying, what deepens connection. Without it, sex feels like effort rather than joy. Inflammation blunts oxytocin release too, so the very foods you eat can sabotage not just physical desire, but emotional closeness with your partner. Now imagine what happens when we reverse this. Remove the inflammatory foods and your blood vessels regain nitric oxide. Circulation improves, cortisol normalizes, testosterone rises, dopamine receptors wake back up. Suddenly, you're not fighting against your own biology anymore. Desire returns, not as a forced effort, but as a natural response. And here's what I want you to hold on to. Age is not the enemy. Menopause is not the enemy. The real enemy is chronic, hidden inflammation. You've been told to eat healthy, whole grains, low-fat foods, vegetable oils. But these exact recommendations are silently strangling your desire. Let's break this down food by food. The first culprit, whole wheat bread. You've been taught that whole wheat is better than white bread. And yes, it contains more fiber. But here's the truth your body can't ignore. Gluten and certain wheat proteins trigger inflammation in many women, even those without celiac disease. Studies have shown that wheat germ agglutinin, a lectin found in wheat, activates immune responses in the gut, leading to low-level inflammation throughout the body. That inflammation raises cortisol, suppresses testosterone, and blocks nitric oxide, which means that seemingly healthy slice of brown bread with your morning eggs could be one of the biggest libido killers on your plate. The second culprit, low-fat yogurt. For decades, women were told fat was the enemy, so we stripped it out of food. But when you remove fat, something has to replace it, usually sugar or artificial sweeteners. That low-fat fruit yogurt may have 20 grams of sugar per serving. That's nearly 5 teaspoons. Sugar floods the bloodstream, spikes insulin, and triggers inflammation, which then suppresses reproductive signaling. Even worse, sugar competes with vitamin C at the cellular level. Vitamin C is crucial for collagen production and tissue repair. Without enough of it, vaginal tissue becomes thinner and more prone to discomfort during intimacy. You thought you were doing something good by choosing low fat. In reality, you were robbing your body of exactly what it needs to stay supple, sensitive, and responsive. The third culprit, vegetable oils. We touched on them earlier, but they deserve deeper focus because they are everywhere. Soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, these dominate packaged foods. Restaurants cook almost everything in them. They are cheap, they are industrial, and they are toxic to your libido. They oxidize easily under heat, creating free radicals that damage blood vessel walls. Remember, arousal depends on blood flow. Damage the blood vessels, you damage the response. A landmark study in nutrition, metabolism, and cardiovascular diseases linked high intake of omega-6 fats to endothelial dysfunction, the inability of blood vessels to dilate properly. That's a death sentence for libido. If blood can't flow to your pelvic tissues, arousal simply cannot happen. The fourth culprit, fruit juice. Yes, juice, the thing advertised as pure and natural. Here's the problem. Juice is stripped of fiber, leaving only concentrated sugar. Your liver is forced to process huge amounts of fructose in a short period of time. Over time, this leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, insulin resistance, and, you guessed it, inflammation. And when your liver struggles, your hormones suffer. The liver is the organ that processes estrogen. A sluggish liver leads to estrogen dominance. Too much estrogen relative to progesterone. Estrogen dominance kills desire. It causes bloating, irritability, low mood, and vaginal dryness. And all of that can be traced back to something as innocent-looking as your daily glass of orange juice. The fifth culprit, diet foods. Sugar-free cookies, low-calorie ice creams, artificial sweeteners. These are marketed to women trying to stay slim after menopause. But here's what the studies say. Artificial sweeteners like aspartame and sucralose disrupt the gut microbiome. Your gut bacteria are directly linked to estrogen metabolism. An unbalanced gut creates something called estrogen recirculation, where used-up estrogen that should have been excreted is reabsorbed into your bloodstream. The result? Hormonal chaos. Artificial sweeteners also increase cravings, destabilize blood sugar, and leave you hungrier, which drives a vicious cycle. And all of this, yes, all of this ties back to libido suppression. The sixth culprit, soy products. Now, soy is complicated. Some forms, like fermented miso or tempeh, can be beneficial. But the processed soy found in protein bars, soy milk, and soy protein isolate has estrogen-like compounds called phytoestrogens. In small amounts, these may not cause trouble. But for many women, especially after menopause when estrogen levels are already shifting unpredictably, phytoestrogens can tip the balance too far. The body's estrogen receptors become overstimulated in some areas, understimulated in others. The result is mood swings, water retention, and yes, low libido. Think about this. You could wake up, eat whole wheat toast with low-fat yogurt, grab a soy latte, snack on a diet protein bar, and finish your day with grilled chicken cooked in canola oil and a glass of fruit juice. On paper, it looks like you followed mainstream healthy advice. But in reality, every bite stacked another block against your own desire. By evening, your blood sugar has been up and down like a roller coaster. Your blood vessels are inflamed, your testosterone is bound up, and your dopamine receptors are dulled. Of course, you don't feel like being intimate. Your body is chemically locked in shutdown mode. And here's the tragedy. Women blame themselves. They think, maybe I'm too old. Maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe my partner and I just aren't compatible anymore. The truth is simpler. You've been eating libido-killing foods without ever knowing it. But here's the good news, and I need you to hold on to this because it's the turning point. Just as food can kill desire, food can bring it back. In fact, studies show that changing diet can restore nitric oxide in as little as 2 weeks. Cortisol levels can normalize within days. Dopamine sensitivity can improve within a month. The transformation can be faster than you think if you remove the killers and add the right fuel. So stay with me, because in a moment I'll reveal the exact foods that ignite desire, restore natural lubrication, and wake up your brain's pleasure pathways. foods that act like medicine, not just for your heart or your waistline, but for your intimacy. And I'll also give you a simple step-by-step plan you can start tonight without needing expensive supplements or complicated recipes. But before we get there, let me foreshadow the one mistake I see women make when they try to fix this problem. They think adding 1 or 2 good foods will be enough. They'll sprinkle flaxseed on cereal or take a fish oil capsule while still eating sugar, wheat, and bad oils. That doesn't work. You cannot heal desire while poisoning it at the same time. Step 1 is always removal. Once the killers are gone, then, and only then, does your body unlock its natural ability to respond. So, what should you eat instead? What are the foods that act as the antidote to all this? I'll tell you in the next section, and I'll go deeper into why they work on a biochemical level, how they boost nitric oxide, balance estrogen, and free up testosterone so your cells can actually use it. Once you understand how this works, you'll never look at your dinner plate the same way again. Now that we've pulled back the curtain on the everyday foods that kill your libido, let's flip the script. Because the truth is, your body was designed for passion, even after menopause. The spark hasn't disappeared, it's just been smothered, and the right foods are the oxygen that can fan those embers back into flame. The first healing food, dark leafy greens, spinach, arugula, kale. These plants are loaded with nitrates, not the artificial nitrates you hear about in processed meats, but natural plant nitrates that your body converts into nitric oxide. Remember, nitric oxide is the molecule that relaxes blood vessels, increasing blood flow where you need it most. More circulation means better natural lubrication, stronger sensitivity, and faster arousal. In fact, research from the University of Texas shows that women who increase dietary nitrates report improved sexual satisfaction within weeks. Spinach isn't just salad, it's nature's libido booster. The second, fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel, anchovies. These are packed with omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3s are the natural antidote to inflammatory omega-6s. They balance the ratio, cool down the body's inflammatory response, and protect blood vessel function. Omega-3s also improve dopamine signaling in the brain. That means not only more physical readiness, but also stronger feelings of pleasure and reward. Dopamine is your motivation neurotransmitter. When dopamine works, desire comes back naturally, not as effort, but as instinct. The third, dark chocolate. Yes, real chocolate. Not the candy bar kind loaded with sugar, but high cocoa dark chocolate, 70% or higher. Cocoa is one of the richest sources of flavonoids, which increase nitric oxide and improve blood flow. Cocoa also raises serotonin, the neurotransmitter that regulates mood. Better mood, less anxiety, more openness to intimacy. That's why, in clinical studies, women who eat dark chocolate regularly report higher levels of desire and satisfaction. The fourth, avocado. This fruit is loaded with healthy monounsaturated fats, vitamin E, and potassium. Vitamin E is critical for hormone balance because it protects cell membranes, allowing estrogen and testosterone to enter cells more effectively. Without it, hormones float in the bloodstream but can't do their job. Potassium lowers blood pressure, which also improves circulation. And the healthy fats in avocado are the raw material your body uses to make sex hormones. Without fat, hormones can't be built. Remember, cholesterol isn't the enemy, it's the backbone of estrogen and testosterone. That's why women on ultra-low fat diets often report lower desire. Avocado restores the foundation. The fifth, beets. Beets are a powerhouse for libido because they're one of the most concentrated sources of natural nitrates. They increase nitric oxide even more than leafy greens. In fact, beet juice is used by athletes to improve endurance because of how powerfully it improves circulation. Imagine applying that same mechanism to intimacy. Beets also provide betaine, which supports liver function and helps process estrogen, preventing estrogen dominance. Balanced estrogen equals better mood, more energy, and higher desire. The sixth, berries. Blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. These are rich in antioxidants that fight oxidative stress, one of the hidden causes of endothelial dysfunction. They also improve dopamine receptor sensitivity in the brain, making pleasure signals stronger. And because they're low glycemic, they don't spike blood sugar the way other fruits do. That means steady energy, stable mood, and no crash. Consistency is key for libido, and berries deliver it. The seventh, nuts and seeds. Almonds, walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, pumpkin seeds. These are rich in zinc and magnesium, two minerals essential for sexual health. Zinc supports testosterone production. Magnesium calms the nervous system, lowering cortisol and making it easier to feel relaxed and receptive. Flax seeds in particular contain lignans that help balance estrogen, acting like a natural regulator to prevent both deficiency and dominance. The eighth, olive oil. Pure extra virgin olive oil is rich in polyphenols that reduce inflammation and support vascular health. A Mediterranean-style diet which heavily features olive oil has been shown in multiple studies to improve sexual function in postmenopausal women. Think of olive oil as both fuel and medicine, smooth, rich, and deeply restorative. Now let's talk about how these foods work in the body together. Because it's not just one food, it's the synergy that matters. When you eat leafy greens and beets, you prime your body with nitric oxide. When you add fatty fish and olive oil, you calm inflammation so the nitric oxide can actually work. When you include nuts, seeds, and avocado, you provide the raw building blocks for estrogen and testosterone. And when you add dark chocolate and berries, you light up the brain's dopamine system, reinforcing desire with pleasure. This is why women who switch to an anti-inflammatory, hormone-supportive diet often report not just a return of libido, but an overall return of vitality. Their energy rises, their sleep improves, their mood stabilizes, and because all of those systems are interconnected, intimacy becomes easier, more natural, more enjoyable. But here's the key. You need to do this consistently. One spinach salad won't transform your life, but 2 weeks of eating this way can. That's how fast the body responds when given the right fuel. Blood vessels repair, cortisol drops, dopamine receptors reset. Your physiology wants to heal. It just needs the chance. So let me give you a practical example. A single day of libido-friendly eating. Breakfast. A smoothie with spinach, blueberries, flaxseed, and unsweetened almond milk. Mid-morning, a square of dark chocolate with a handful of walnuts. Lunch, grilled salmon over arugula with avocado and olive oil dressing. Afternoon, beet and berry smoothie. Dinner, roasted chicken with steamed broccoli, drizzled in olive oil, and a side of quinoa. This day hits every single target: nitric oxide, anti-inflammatory fats, hormone-building nutrients, and dopamine support. Done consistently, this kind of eating can change your body's chemistry in weeks. Let's talk about cravings, because if you've ever tried to change your diet, you know this is the biggest roadblock. You tell yourself, tomorrow I'll eat clean, but by evening, the bread, the cookies, or the ice cream are calling your name. It feels like weakness, like lack of discipline. But here's the truth. It's not you. It's your microbiome. Inside your gut, live trillions of bacteria. Some are your allies. They digest fiber, produce vitamins, regulate estrogen, and even generate neurotransmitters like serotonin. Others, though, are your enemies. They thrive on sugar, refined carbs, and processed oils. These bad bacteria release chemical signals that make you crave the very foods that feed them. That's why cravings feel so overwhelming. They're not just psychological, they're microbial. And here's where it connects to libido. Your gut microbiome directly regulates estrogen metabolism through something called the estrobolome. The estrobolome is the collection of gut bacteria that produce enzymes to break down estrogen. When the estrobolome is healthy, estrogen is metabolized and excreted properly, keeping your balance steady. But when bad bacteria dominate, thanks to sugar, processed foods, and artificial sweeteners, they interfere with this process. Estrogen that should be cleared ends up recirculating in your bloodstream. The result? Estrogen dominance. Estrogen dominance blunts desire. It causes mood swings, bloating, fatigue, and vaginal dryness. It can even lower free testosterone by raising sex hormone-binding globulin, the same protein we talked about earlier. So your cravings are not just making you overeat. They're directly disrupting your hormonal balance in ways that shut down libido. But it goes deeper. Gut bacteria also produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. When you eat fiber, butyrate lowers inflammation and supports the blood-brain barrier. That means it protects your brain's dopamine system. Without butyrate, dopamine receptors become less sensitive, and dopamine is what makes you feel desire in the first place. So when your gut is unbalanced, not only do you crave the wrong foods, but you also feel less motivated, less energized, and less interested in intimacy. Now here's the hopeful part. You can reprogram cravings by changing your microbiome. Studies show that within just 72 hours of changing your diet, bacterial populations begin to shift. Feed them fiber, polyphenols, and healthy fats, and the good species multiply. Starve the bad ones, and they weaken. As this balance changes, your cravings change too. Suddenly, you want the foods that support your hormones and circulation, not the ones that kill them. Now let me foreshadow something critical. You can balance hormones, reduce inflammation, improve circulation, and retrain your cravings. But there's one final barrier that many women forget, and that barrier is mindset. Because libido doesn't live only in your body. It lives in your brain's interpretation of signals: safety, pleasure, self-image, connection. And if your mindset is full of fear, shame, or self-criticism, your brain won't allow desire to fully emerge, even if your body is primed for it. We've covered the biology, circulation, hormones, inflammation, and cravings. But now we must face the final, often overlooked piece, the mind. Step 1. Remove the killers. Cut out refined sugar, processed vegetable oils, artificial sweeteners, and excessive wheat. These inflame your body, disrupt hormones, and sabotage blood flow. You don't have to be perfect overnight, but commit to eliminating at least one major source, like soda or packaged snacks, this week. Step 2. Add the builders. Eat daily from the libido-friendly foods we covered. Leafy greens, beets, fatty fish, avocado, berries, nuts, seeds, olive oil, dark chocolate. Think of each meal as either fueling your hormones or fighting them. Step 3. Reset the gut. Include prebiotic foods like garlic and onions, probiotics like sauerkraut or kefir, and polyphenols from berries or green tea. Within days, your microbiome begins shifting, lowering estrogen dominance and reducing cravings. Step 4. Calm cortisol. Use magnesium-rich foods, hydration, and evening relaxation rituals to lower stress hormones. Even 5 minutes of slow, deep breathing before bed lowers cortisol significantly. Remember, low cortisol equals higher desire. Step 5. Reframe the mind. Challenge the self-criticism. Replace "I'm too old" with "my body is capable of renewal." Replace "I don't feel sexy" with "I am awakening again." These shifts may sound simple, but repeated daily, they rewire neural pathways. Pair them with oxytocin-boosting activities, laughter, touch, closeness, to remove the brakes. Step 6. Create a passion ritual. This doesn't have to mean sex every night. It means setting aside intentional time for intimacy, physical, emotional, or sensual, at least once or twice a week. The brain thrives on repetition. The more you experience connection, the stronger your accelerators become. Now let's put it into a single, practical evening routine. Tonight, instead of dessert, eat a square of dark chocolate with a handful of walnuts. Drink a glass of water with a pinch of sea salt for hydration. Spend 5 minutes writing down 3 things you appreciate about yourself. Something kind, not critical. Then, if you have a partner, share a few minutes of touch or conversation without screens, without distraction. That's it. You've just combined nutrition, hydration, cortisol management, mindset, and intimacy in one ritual. Do that for a week and you'll notice changes. Do it for a month and you may not recognize yourself.